Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha with Ice Cream Fitness here. One of my subscribers named Michael had a couple of different questions he sent me in a private message this morning, and I'm going to go ahead and address those questions for you guys because they're really good questions, and I'm just going to kind of break that down for you a little bit. But hold on, let me give you guys a bicep shot first. Alright, let me put my glasses on so I can read this for you. Alright, Michael asks, you mentioned that you don't really need to do more than 3 variations of an exercise for muscle. What I would like to know is, after how much volume are you wasting your time? I know you should stay in the gym from about an hour to an hour and a half because that's when your body starts to go into a catabolic state. But how much volume is just a waste of time? For example, if I do 80 reps of bench press in my workout, is there any benefit to doing 90? And does this differ from body part to body part? I've even heard that you don't really need bicep isolation if you train your back hard enough and do rows, pull-ups, etc. Your take on the matter. Alright, you asked a few different questions there, and I just want to break that down. I didn't say 3 different variations of an exercise. I said 3 different exercises that use a body part as the primary mover. So that doesn't mean 3 variations of flies or 3 variations of bench press. That literally means 3 variations for your chest in general. Should be all that you need at the most to bring out every plane and angle of a muscle. And if you need more than 3 lifts to fully develop a muscle, you've got a huge amount of redundancy in there. Now, this is not to say that you don't need extra focus on some of those heads. For example, bench pressing and closed grip pressing puts tons and tons of stress on the lateral and medial head of the tricep and neglects the long head a bit. Yet you'll see powerlifters come back and do 15 sets of isolation movements, focusing on those heads because they need those heads to be stronger and more developed to lock out their bench press. And you'll find most top powerlifters do that. And it can be the same with bodybuilders because they do at a certain level of advanced bodybuilders, they need to add extra volume, potentially 4 heads of muscles they've already worked through compound movements rather than correcting things. But for the non-super advanced or non-elite lifter, is oftentimes very redundant and a waste of time. And it has more to do with what I'm going to get into with these other questions here shortly. Now, as far as this hour to an hour and a half, again, you're using bro science has been disproven. There's no reason you can't train for 2 or 3 hours straight and actually make better gains than you made off of an hour. And watch any of my videos with the words cortisol in the title or overtraining in the title. There's YouTube search engines for you to find individual videos on a channel with these things in the titles. It's very, very easy. But I've got multiple videos covering this stuff that's absolutely not true. It's completely been unproven scientifically. We know that the higher workloads and longer sessions produce more growth per session. Now, what we get into, it comes into your next question here of how much is too much. In all honesty, and this is with the HIIT advocates, I always say this, well, why not just do 1,000 sets? Because they don't understand, they're unwilling to admit that it has been proven that the more sets you do, the more growth you stimulate, period. 100 sets will stimulate more growth than 10 sets, period. Hands down. The problem you get into is that that extra 90 sets might only stimulate 2% more muscle growth. And are you willing to spend 4 extra hours in the gym on a body part to get 2% more muscle growth stimulated? And you get into the issue of there is no perfect amount because you are dealing with issues of recovery, central nervous system recovery, potential overuse injuries, how much downtime do you need to heal and recover and get back in the gym quickly? Because realistically, if you're not putting any drugs in your body, you're not growing past the 48-hour mark after you train a muscle. So if you have beat a muscle up to the point to where you can't get back in the gym and train it again in 48 to 72 hours, even though you might have stimulated more growth in that session doing 50 sets instead of just doing 8 or 10 sets, you've hurt yourself over the course of a week or a month in terms of growth because you can't train it again as often. Now, this goes out the window when you start adding enough anabolics into the mix because, quite frankly, it's not a big deal to make a muscle grow for a week straight with enough drugs in your body. But for the moderate steroid user or particularly the natural lifter, you've actually hurt yourself by doing that. And your recovery and work capacity And ability to recover is very much an individual thing, and oftentimes it's a matter of your conditioning, how experienced you are. And then we get to the issue of if your performance is degrading because you haven't built up a work capacity or a training stamina from a couple of years of hard, high volume training, what you're going to find is that your later sets don't stimulate as much growth. So you might cut it off at 5 or 6. And I would say for a first year lifter, more than about 6, 7 sets tops for a body part, they're just not strong enough in terms of strength stamina to keep stimulating more growth because their performance declines. I don't know many first year lifters who can do 10 sets of bench press back to back and not lose reps when stopping 1 or 2 short of failure and maintain that for 10 full sets. Now, most advanced lifters can pull that off, but a novice can't. So you get into the issue of if their performance is degrading on multiple sets, yeah, there's almost no point in continuing to do more in terms of stimulating growth. All you're doing is beating your body up and not really getting anything out of it. But if you're able to maintain performance, there is almost an infinite amount of growth you can stimulate until your performance starts declining. But the same could be said of if it's certain muscles giving out, let's say on your bench press, if it is your chest or delts giving out and you want more tricep work, you could still go behind it and do more tricep training and remove those muscles that have been weakened and still continue to stimulate growth in the triceps. But again, you're dealing with finding the proper balance for you, and a properly structured program will work for most people who it is appropriate for in terms of how advanced they are. And there will be outliers genetically, but for most people it's going to work. It's again why I tell people, if you're a novice, do a novice program. If you're an intermediate, do an intermediate program. Don't do a program for people at a different level, because it's not going to balance your workload versus your recovery versus muscle protein synthesis properly. You're going to shortchange yourself a little growth. So that's the issue we get into. It's a very complex question and a bit of a complex answer there. Now, when we hop over to this last question you asked about, like things with the biceps, depends on the person genetically. I know people who do not train biceps who have beautiful, huge biceps from doing nothing but weighted chin-ups and barbell rows. And I will state, for the record, weighted chin-ups will put meat on anybody's biceps. I don't care who you are. The issue is that some people just genetically do not develop biceps in proportion to things like their back quickly enough. And I'm one of those people. And I would say the majority of people, I'd say at least 70% of people genetically cannot build a balanced physique in terms of bicep to back off of doing purely compounds. Now, the compounds should contribute to a huge amount of their growth, but they're going to have to go behind it and do some extra bicep work. And I'm one of those people. I cannot skip curls. Even though I do tons of heavy rowing and tons of pulling and I do a lot of chin-ups, I have to do a few curls to try to keep my biceps even remotely caught up. But there are other people who simply do not have to do that. So when it comes to how much isolation work do you need for a given muscle, if you're doing appropriate compounds for it, it's completely genetic. And me, for example, by that same token, I would never need to isolate my chest. So you guys see again, I've got a 51-inch chest. I bench press for my chest. That's all I do. I don't do dumbbells for my chest. I don't do flies. I don't do any of that. But I cannot keep my triceps and biceps common to my chest, even though those are just about the only muscles I isolate. Whereas another guy will do tons of bench pressing and genetically say his triceps are more gifted. His triceps might actually, from doing nothing but bench press and close grip bench press, might actually grow faster than his chest, and he's going to have to come back in and do extra flies and things to get things in proportion. So this is something you start learning when you reach the intermediate level. You start learning your body and seeing how it responds, because every person will develop different weak points based upon your genetics, your muscle insertions, your muscle bellies, on the same program. I could take 5 different guys, put them on the same program that's a balanced program, and all 5 of them will develop different muscle imbalances on a well-rounded program. And then once they get to a certain level, they'll have to go back through and correct those imbalances. So to answer that, again, that's a complex question. You're going to have to learn your own body and experiment with it and see how much isolation work you actually need for a muscle group. But it doesn't mean by default that you're going to have to just go in and do a bunch of isolation for a given muscle. You will have muscles that you will fully develop off of compounds that you will never need an isolation for. But I can't tell you genetically which ones they are for you until you actually have been training for a while and you've observed firsthand. All right, guys, this has been a really long video. I'm going to go ahead and put the Q&A up today for you guys for the Monday Q&As and for the Gear Talk Q&A. That's really all I have to say on that today, and I will talk to you guys next time.